Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Spiritually Speaking. You may or may not recognize my guest I have with me today. This is Troy Vincent. He does the magic that is MER, mental emotional release. And then my friend Jessica Kirby, who is a medium and an intuitive and an all around amazing person and incredible friend. So we're just going to
Oh,
dive right
thank you.
in. Welcome to you too. And thank you for joining me today. I'm so excited to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
You're
Thank you, Dee,
welcome.
and it's good to see you, Jess. I know we're going to have a more in-depth conversation in a bit here, but it's good to see you. It's been a couple of years.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, yeah.
Been great.
So thanks again, Dee, for bringing me back to your show, and we'll explore the world of brain change and mental emotional release, which is a technique that helps with that in a big way, which Jess has experienced even just a little tidbit of it, and it's really cool. You'll hear her story. So this is just a process that taps into how our behaviors show up. And behaviors seems like they're driven by emotions, right? We notice our emotions that drive a behavior, and our emotions come often from interpretations. So our thought processes, and that goes even deeper than that. It goes into our beliefs. Our deepest levels of programming is our beliefs and then our values. And so one value might be safety. So a lot of the work I do to help people with the problems of anxiety or trauma, depression, people pleasing, perfectionism, you start rattling off all these behaviors because that's all these things are, right? Anxiety is not something we have. It's actually something we do. It's something your system is doing. Depression is something your system is doing, not something that you have. And it's really helpful to remove that possessive language of I have this,
Mhm.
because if you possess it, guess what? You kind of want to keep it. There's a part of you that wants to hold on to what you have. And so removing that language and recognizing that this is something you do. You're like, oh, this is just a behavior. It allows us to separate ourselves from the behavior. It prevents us from adopting it as an identity. Like how often does that happen, right? We're like, oh, I'm just a shy person. No, you're behaving in a shy way, and there's programming that's creating that, right, to keep you safe and protect you. I'm an introvert. No, actually, that's just behaviors, and it's not an identity, and it actually is just programming, helping you behave a certain way to, again, protect you and help you navigate in the world and keep you safe. And so being able to recognize these things as just behaviors, and this is driven by programming, means we get to choose whether we want to keep that programming. If you like being an introvert, keep that programming, right? If you like being insert whatever it is, keep it. A big one is I'm an empath. So there's no such thing as an identity as an empath. It's something we are doing. You're being empathetic, right? You're doing the empathy. And so if you love being identified as an empath, keep it. Keep that programming. It's a beautiful thing, being connected with the energy and being able to do that. And what happens is you can then connect into any pitfalls and then shift those away and keep all the perks. And so this is just the power of tapping into that programming to see what's driving everything. It's the ripple effect. You take any belief, let's say, I'm not good enough. And as you connect with that belief, think about how that influences your thoughts as you move out throughout your day. And as you have those thoughts come up, think about how that triggers emotions, right? And then think about how it then influences your behaviors. And so scaling it all back into the root and the seed, what I call the seed of it. There's a lot of root cause things out there, and I'll talk about why I talk about the seed of everything instead. And it brings us into what we can do and recognizing everything out there. Um, Tell me if this feels familiar. I talk about how there's two types of triggers. There's the sensory triggers that we all experience, right? What we see, hear, feel, taste, touch, and even what we think, because we can imagine pictures and sounds and smells and sensory stuff. So all those sensory triggers, I call them clue triggers, and they're not true triggers. The true trigger is the programming that's driving us to react to all the clue triggers. And so a mistake we make is focusing on the clue triggers, identifying those, because sometimes they're very easy, and then going, oh, that's the problem. That's what I need to get rid of. That's what I need to run away from. That's what I need to avoid. That's what I need to shut down. That's what I need to numb myself from, distract myself, whatever it is. We have all these different strategies to manage these clue triggers. And really all we need to do is get to the true trigger and then deal with that instead. And so, to give you an example, there's this lady who came to me it's over a year ago, and she was having anxiety attacks anytime that she heard sirens.
Mm.
And so she shared a story with me a little bit. And what had happened is 6 months prior to that, she had lost her husband tragically, and like in his 40s at home. He had a heart condition and called 911. And as the ambulance came screaming up the road and into her driveway with the sirens blaring, right, came in, turned into a huge tragic day. Ever since that day, the sound of a siren put her in an anxiety attack, whether she was at home, whether she was out and about at work and driving. She'd have to pull over to the side of the road and then use all the techniques, the cool tools that we have, right, to ground herself, breath work, everything, just to try to get her sensory system back down and to get the nervous system back and get out of that fight or flight and response. And so she would use those tools. These the siren is a clue trigger. It's sensory. And she would manage the clue trigger. And this is how often, personal growth, this is what we often do. Here's your sensory triggers, manage them, right?
Yeah.
And so she was using medication and meditation and all these even helpful and healthy things that I encourage people to do, but it wasn't getting rid of the problem. She's thought, this is my life now. This is like a life sentence. It's permanent. I got to learn how to live with it. And so when she came to me, I explained to her we got to get to the clue trigger, or pardon me, the true trigger. And when we did, and then we used a simple technique to remove it, it was gone. And so what the true trigger was for her, the sirens roaring up the driveway, she said, she revealed, all I could think of is my world is coming to an end.
Mm.
So
Dang.
she had this imprint, right? This belief, my world is coming to an end. I got attached and connected to the sound of a siren.
Mm.
And so anytime she heard a siren, her unconscious mind, right, where all our programming is embedded, just activated that, uh-oh, my world is coming to an end. A siren means this. This equals that.
Yeah.
Siren, my world's coming to an end. And so that's why she would just freak out every time and have an anxiety attack. Her system was trying to protect her. This is all it knew, right? This is the interpretation it had. And so we just simply disconnected the the meaning from the actual sensory trigger. And so once it was done, she texted me on her way home, like an hour later. She said, I just heard a siren. And what's cool is it took me a couple of minutes to actually notice I had heard a siren and I didn't react whatsoever. It was like, it wasn't until it was really, really loud and driving by my house that I realized there was a siren. I didn't hear it coming up like in the distance. It was just really loud. I
Wow.
went, wow, that's annoying, because she was trying to have a conversation with someone and it was interrupted. He's like, oh, that siren's loud. She was actually annoyed at the siren. And then she
Wow.
went, wait a second, I'm not having an anxiety attack.
So
This is
it sounds like
incredible.
her subconscious was almost like seeking that sound out, because the way you describe it, it's like she didn't even notice she was hearing it until it got really loud. But prior
Yeah.
to that, it was like the softest sound in the distance, and it would trigger her reaction in that way.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Great point, right? And I've heard it described as like being a watchdog. It's that part, it's like the
Oh, yeah.
amygdala of the brain.
Yeah.
If you got your brain, it's like the center in there, the limbic system, and the amygdala that you might hear about if you get into this. And it's like a watchdog. It's like scanning the perimeter and ready to
Yeah.
growl and bark and let you know that's danger's there. And so this is where hypervigilance comes in, right?
Yeah.
And so you're right. Her unconscious mind, pick up a siren from so far away once upon a time before, right? Because like,
Yeah.
uh-oh. And then as it just got louder, then the emotion would intensify. Um, and you're right. And then now it's like, that doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean my world's coming to an end anymore. So your brain's not looking for it. It's
Mm.
not paying attention. That's not important until all of a sudden it's like, oh, geez, I can't even ignore that. It's so loud.
Yeah.
And then you realize, oh, that's not a big deal anymore. Yeah. So that was
Yeah.
such a cool change. And it's just
Yeah.
an example of, getting to that true trigger. And sometimes you have to identify what it is that helps to
Yeah.
get rid of it. And sometimes you don't. which we'll dive in with Jess. Didn't have to
Yeah.
identify her true trigger whatsoever. There's
One
ways to
thing I
just
want
get
to
around it.
ask before, because I'm sure that a ton of listeners are probably thinking this right now, when you have a process like this done to help with something like this siren phenomena with this particular lady, and then you have this session with you where you remove that trigger or change the meaning or however you described it right there, is that a lasting effect, or is that something that's going to eventually sneak its way back in?
Great question. Yeah. So, uh, what we treat all these, emotional imprints and all these belief imprints, and is we call it baggage. And when you know how to release the baggage, it's gone. Unless you want to go create new baggage later, but it's gone. So, I always reach out to people that I connect with when they're clients, and a year later, 6 months later, see how they're doing, a year later, see how they're doing, just to see how it's progressing. I've never had anyone say it's back. It's gone. And so it's a permanent change, and it can happen in a nice, fast and gentle and permanent way, which is great.
Yeah,
And so this is that way. It takes away the role of having to manage everything. And because
right.
managing, I don't know, we've all done it. So it's exhausting. It can get exhausting. Some
Yeah.
days you're in the flow and you're like, I love managing. I love using these tools and all that stuff. And there's other days you're like, oh, I just, I run out of energy for this.
Exhausting.
Yeah. Speaking of running out of energy, Jess had quite the experience with managing her issues. So, Jess, I would love for you to jump in now. Troy's already invited you, and I kind of interrupted a little bit to ask that question. So, I'd like for you to tell us what your experience has been.
Okay, wow. So I had a terrifying phobia of centipedes and millipedes. It was bad. Some friends would think it's funny to send pictures of centipedes to me, text it to me. I'd open it and just throw my phone and just start bawling, like have a panic attack. I was just absolutely terrified. I wasn't sure why. I didn't know where it came from, but I didn't want anything to do with them. And so you had connected Troy and myself, and it it was pretty amazing. It was pretty amazing. Um, just through kind of talking through it, took me back to where I think the phobia began, which ended up being a past life, being bitten by one as a child. That's where it came from. And I have not, I don't like them. I'm not going to go looking for them by any means. But if I see one, which I have seen, it's a quite large one actually, when I was in West Virginia hiking, I didn't freak out. I didn't run away. I didn't have a panic attack. I was just like, ooh, ooh, that's gross. I didn't want to touch it, but I did not have a panic attack. My reaction, yes, was like 100 times less than what it previously was. It really was a true phobia. I was absolutely terrified of millipedes and centipedes. It was horrible. But not anymore. I just kind of have an aversion to them, but not a phobia.
Yeah. I remember you sharing the phone story of throwing your phone across the room and then running out.
Yes, yes.
As if
Or,
across the room wasn't far enough. You're like, and I'm leaving the room too.
oh, yeah. Well, yeah. And actually, even one time, my poor kids, I was in the shower one time and I saw one on the shower curtain and I come flying out of the bathroom. I mean, there was no grabbing a towel, anything. I was just gone, screaming for my poor 13-year-old daughter to get it. I even woke her up one time. It was probably, I don't know, it was really, really late. She was asleep. I woke her up because I almost stepped on one. It was right in the middle of the carpet, which is kind of weird. But yeah, right in the middle of my entryway. And she woke up real quick. Poor girl. I felt bad, but I couldn't, I was just terrified. There was nothing I could do except Charlie, get it, get it.
Yeah. It's incredible, right? And so there was just part of your programming that was like, oh, beware. And so you had that watchdog that was scanning the area
Yes.
for any centipedes. And hey, I'm not a fan of them myself, but it's just a normal reaction. It sounds like you have a normal reaction to it now,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah. It's
remember
just
when
like,
you and I,
oh,
yeah, when you and I did the process. Do you remember how skeptical you were at first? You're like, ah,
yes.
dude, this
Yep.
isn't gonna work.
Yeah, I was trying to keep keeping an open mind,
Yeah,
because I do know anything is possible. But yeah, I just had never heard of any such thing. But yeah, absolutely. It was amazing. Yep.
yeah. This is if it's okay to interject here, just to kind of digress a little bit. This is where I often tell people a really powerful thing is to listen to your language, even if you have a lot of skepticism. It's not a problem. That's not going to get in the way of healing and getting past these things. It's the cynicism. It's being shut down. It's the fixed mindset, right? And one way to tell that
Yes.
is going, if you're saying that is impossible, then that's a great indicator of you just being in a fixed mindset, meaning you're just
Uh-huh.
fixated on what you already believe, what you've been taught, what you have witnessed and observed and heard from others, and then what you have experienced yourself. And so it's
Yeah.
understandable. We all do this, by the way, right? Moments we
Yep.
just get fixated and go, oh, I'm going to hold on to my belief because this is what I've been taught and this is what I've observed and this is what I've experienced. If you've experienced and not been taught anything outside of it, it may feel foreign and you could be just fixated on what you believe and have experienced and you reject everything else.
Yep.
And so, what I tell people, encourage them to do, because it's helped me so much, is shift it from that's impossible to ask the question, even with the most skepticism you want, how is that even possible?
Hmm.
Just how? Because by asking that, you're opening up the door to even just a crack. And you might discover you now you're opening up to learning something different, observing, hearing something different, and then maybe even experience something different. And then once you do, of course, you create different beliefs, just like Jess. Now she's like, oh, yeah, this works totally.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
It's the
And I love that
GPS, right?
mindset because you can apply that to really anything in
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yep.
and
I love
hey,
that.
it's a human thing. Like I still catch myself every now and again going, "Oh, that's impossible." Oh, look what I'm doing. And then I go, "How is that even possible?" And then
Yeah.
you'll explore. And what's great by exploring, you're not like being vulnerable and opening yourself up to be fooled or anything like that. It's like, no, you can have your skeptic. I'm a Gen Xer, so it's like we are the skeptic generation, and so it's like we come in with skepticism, and it's healthy. It can be really healthy. You can just explore, learn, see, compare, and then go, okay, yeah, I'm ready to adopt a new belief, or going, no, that's not fit for me yet. And you just move it over to the side. And so just
Hmm.
being able to create that nice growth mindset and to explore is really, really cool. So as you hear even this stuff today going, how is that even possible? I encourage you to ask that question. Snarl at it if you want. You're like, what?
Yeah.
Whatever. But but if you go, that's impossible, and then just it's like a locked door. It's like you're not letting anything come in on any possibility. And and I remember, yeah, you had lots of skepticism. And then I always test all these things out too, right? And I remember I collected just pictures of the nastiest centipedes and millipedes I could. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to share my screen with you, Jess. We popped it up there and you just went, oh, that guy's
Oh,
ugly.
yeah.
And that's all you did. You scrunched your face and went, ugh, right? And to me, that's a very normal reaction
Yeah,
because I
absolutely.
do the same. Like, oh yeah, you're not, I don't like you. You'll tickle
Yeah.
my skin. I don't like being tickled. So yeah, I don't like centipedes. And I'm like you too. If I see something in the house, right? I'm going, ah, this is not your domain. This is mine. Get
Yeah, you
out.
got to go.
Right. So, but this is a more normal reaction. We got rid of that phobic response where it's like you had
Yes.
no control over it. It's like,
None
get
whatsoever.
out.
It was embarrassing. It was
Yeah.
embarrassing because if I, before my session with you, if I had seen that centipede out hiking, I mean, I was in a state park. There were lots of people around. I would have been so embarrassed because I would have lost my shit. I would have.
Someone just screaming bloody murder, and everyone's like, "What's
Yeah, I'd
happening
have
in the
been
park? What's going
hightailing it to
on?"
the car. Probably left my poor kid back there to fend for herself.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, because it's been 2 years now.
Yes,
And you asked the
yes,
question, do you about, does it last? And so this is an example, right? It's been 2 years
absolutely,
since you've had
absolutely.
that. And it took us what, in total, I think we hung out for like 45 minutes. The technique we used, I think it took
Yeah,
about 15, maybe 20.
it was. Yeah,
Uh,
it wasn't. I mean, it was just mind blowing because it was really. I mean, to think of all those years of having that phobia and for it to just be gone that, in an hour or whatever. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. And
Yeah,
I thank you
congrats.
so much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
We
Congratulations
all
again.
thank you, Troy.
Yeah, no doubt. Especially
I
my
know,
daughters.
I know there's people who don't thank me, the ones who used to send you the pictures to get you to react.
Yeah.
They're like, ah, you took our fun away.
That's so
Yep.
funny.
Yeah, so this is just tapping into that power of, brain change. People have, when I started doing this with clients and stuff, like, you're a brain ninja. Like, how do you do this? And it's just knowing tools and techniques. And that's another thing that I like touching on for people is we have that idea, that belief that we've been taught from the beginning. I mean, we're all taught healing takes time.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, especially if I've had this affliction for years, therefore it's going to take years to get off. It's not like fat, It's like I accumulated this over time, so it's going to take time to remove it. And when it comes to the physical body, that can be true, right? But thankfully, a lot of these things, you adopt these things instantly. At some point, the programming came into you. In this case, it sounds like you inherited it, right? You were born with this. And that's another great thing, too. Just because you're born with that programming doesn't mean it's yours to keep, doesn't mean it's who you are. It just means this is a program that's running. You can
Yeah.
change it if you want, right? Keep what you want, remove what you want. And so being able to tap into that and recognizing, oh, this is just programming that moves along the way. And so, yeah, congratulations
Yeah.
on that.
Thank you. And well, what's interesting is I didn't even realize that programming could follow you into other lives. So that was a new learning experience for me as well. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and if there's people who are, I don't think many people will be listening because you seem to have a very open-minded audience, Dee. But
Yeah.
if some people are like, I don't really believe in past lives, it doesn't even matter. Even if
Yeah.
your unconscious mind's like, this is from a past life, and you're like, well, I don't believe in past life.
Mhm.
I always say, well, who cares? If
Yeah.
your unconscious
Right.
mind thinks it's from a past life, who cares? We just want to get rid of it, right? Where
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
don't care where it's from. And
Mhm.
so a lot of people, I don't believe in that. Well, do you believe in generations? Do you have parents and grandparents and great grandparents? Like, I believe in that. Great. Well, it's just from the past. And I mean, there's been plenty of scientific experiments. There's a great one where they, and I'll give a warning for those who don't like animal testing. But they had like little mice and they would spritz cherry blossom scent into a cage and then they would shock the floor and the mouse, would like freak out and jump and climb to get away from the electrical current. And it didn't take very long for the mouse to learn, oh, the smell of cherry blossom equals getting shocked. They did it a couple of times, and the smart mouse went, okay, yeah, as soon as I smell the cherry blossom, I'm getting out of there. Fuck
Right.
this, right?
Yeah.
And so it learned quick and adapted. It created that little watchdog, if you will, right? To like, okay, cherry blossom, I'm out. And so it has, and that's another example of the clue trigger, right? Cherry blossom was the clue trigger. And so
Yeah.
let's get out of here. And so the belief was cherry blossom, moves. If I could have done mental and emotional release with the mouse, I could have removed that trauma from the mouse. And what's interesting is this mouse then went on to father children. And the babies given the spritz, and the babies would scurry to get
Wow.
away from it. They didn't experience the shock.
Interesting.
They just knew already that's dangerous. How did they know? They never experienced the pain that came from it, right?
It's like it was
And
imprinted in the
it's
father's
imprinted.
DNA.
Exactly. So this is the
Mhm.
generational trauma and baggage and programming that we collect. Trauma, by the way, um, is just programming. It's all it is, to simplify it. And I say that not to dismiss trauma. I've got rid of a lot of my trauma too. It's just to simplify it and recognize that it's not as big of a deal when it comes to removing it, knowing
Yeah.
that it's just programming. It's creating a terrible behavioral response, the trauma response, but it's just programming. And what's great about that is you can go in, find the program, remove it, and then your trauma's gone. And a lot of people that I talk to, they're like, no, you can't get rid of trauma. And again, that's a closed mind, fixed mindset, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is what I've been taught. And the truth is, it's like, it's just programming within you. At some point, your mind decided or you inherited trauma, and you go in, shift that programming, and it removes everything. And so that's really, really cool to point out. And so they did this test, and I think they followed it for multiple generations of mice. I can't remember if they got up to 5 Or I
Oh,
know they've
wow.
done other tests. They got, I think, as far as 7 generations, and they just haven't measured beyond. So it's to show like even all those generations still carried the trauma response of cherry
Wow.
blossom. And so when you talk about like,
It's
oh, I want to break the
crazy.
cycle of generational trauma, good news, you can.
You
Yeah.
can.
And it
And
doesn't
it
have
also
to,
explains a lot about things that we feel and experience and don't understand why, because we haven't gone through it in this physical life. So we're like, why the hell would I be so affected by it? Like you with the centipedes, Jess.
Yeah.
You're like, I've never had like a traumatic experience with centipedes in this life. So where did this come from? So that
Exactly.
really does explain why we carry some of that stuff and
Yeah.
we don't understand where it came from.
that's a
Yeah.
great point. Yeah.
So
I
And
I'm just
mean,
that's,
saying, you don't believe in past lives.
yeah, my
and
parents don't have, any phobia of centipedes or millipedes.
yeah,
So
so it
I'm
wasn't
definitely going to attribute it to
the
the past
generational.
life.
And then what's interesting too is, some of that generational trauma, it can be passed on to generation to generation, and some of it won't be active. And so
Mm,
if you study like epigenetics, it's like sometimes it's there and there's
yeah.
like an off switch, and then something in
Yeah.
your environment, any point along the way, flips
Yeah.
it on. And there's this example of a gal who one day out of nowhere, she was in the shower and she started having a panic attack. And she's like, "What's going on?" And she got out of the shower and calmed herself down and went about her day. I'm like, "That's so weird." And then, next day she's having a shower, panic attack again. And she's like, "What the hell's going on?"
Yeah.
And so it became connected to the shower. Well, to speed up the story, she did some searching and she eventually found out that her grandmother, who wasn't really a part of the family anymore, had been a survivor in Germany. She was a Jewish lady.
Oh,
And so
Wow.
she'd been a part of a concentration camp. And so a lot of fear and stuff was imprinted based on showers and gas chambers, right? And so a lot of that within there. And so this
interesting.
was passed along to her, right? Passed
Wow.
down through her parents into her. And it didn't happen for her until I think she was in her 30s. And all of a sudden, a switch came on now. And I don't know why, but the good news is you don't need to know why. You can just remove the programming
Just remove it.
and shift it out. And so, yeah, sometimes I'm a little hesitant to talk about how fast this can work because that can really shift people into cynicism.
Yeah.
But it's just true. Our brain's actually built to
It
heal
is.
fast. And we've known this now for many decades. And people go, well, why is it more popular then and more well known? It's like there's a lot of money to be made in managing
Oh
problems.
my
Oh,
God.
for
Yes.
sure.
Right?
So
There's
much.
a lot of
Yeah.
money to be made in managing it because if you have to manage it for the rest of your life, that means you got to pay me for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Hooray! That's
And
a
the
good
thing,
business structure, right?
yeah, and the thing is too, we really truly don't understand and believe the power that we humans have just innately.
Yeah.
Like we think everything is freaking impossible. If we really had any kind of concept of what we're really capable of, most of us would be so mind blown we wouldn't be able to get out of bed.
Yeah.
I mean, truly,
Yeah,
because we are so powerful, we are so capable. And so this is to me is just a beautiful example of how capable and how powerful we truly are.
Yeah.
So like if you want to get over your shit and you want to get over it really quick and for good, then you need to give Troy a call and let him help you walk through this stuff.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's worth. Yeah, and I always meet
Mind
people for
blowing.
free at first just to find out, like what the problem is and if I could help. All the factors in there and see if they're ready for it too. Because sometimes we
Yeah.
want change, but we're not ready for change. And
Oh,
there's a
that's
few
so
questions
true.
I can ask to find out. And I've experienced that too. It's like, oh yeah, I want change in my life. There's a interesting story of a guy who uh, his mother was dying, and on at the time, like he used to be in the NFL, and was proud, oh, I'm making my mom proud. And then afterwards, he got into drugs and his life, and he lost his money and everything like that. And then his mom was dying, and his he what didn't feel like he was, good enough to be her son, right? It's like, oh, I'm not making my mom proud. I'm embarrassing, and so made a promise on her deathbed, Mom, I'm changing everything, and he could just feel it, like, yes, it's changing. I want this. Fast forward 3 years where he finally took the step to change. So it took him 3 more years of struggling
Yeah.
before he was actually ready to get into it and take the steps to
Yeah.
do it. And so just recognizing that, giving ourselves grace when it happens, even when you want change, sometimes you're not ready for it immediately.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh, that's so true. That's
yeah,
so true. It's
Yeah.
really apparent when you have a business of your own or you're stepping into a new space as Jess is doing today, actually,
Yes.
officially. So excited for you, Jess.
nice.
Thank you.
And we're going to talk about that on a future episode. So don't think you're missing out. We're going to come back. We're going to circle back around
Good.
and episode just with Jess about
Yeah.
that. But
I want to know.
when you have a business of your own and you're stepping into new spaces or creating more abundance and you've never had that in your life before, it's it's even though you want it, like you said, Troy, even though you want it, it's really uncomfortable because you're thinking of all of these aspects of it that are going to create change in your life that you may not uh, be prepared to deal with, you feel like anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I used to focus on two main messages. One is know that, change is possible, that healing's possible. And then the second one I would say, and know that healing can happen faster than you think.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of examples. I'll even share, a couple more stories here today
Sure.
of it, but become tentative sometimes to share how quick it can happen because it can cause people to shut down mentally, close it off, become a fixed mindset, and then they miss out. Sometimes people just need to know it's possible. So
Yes.
that's the main message that I want to send, that it's possible. It's just programming. It's not who you are. You can keep the programming you want. You can ditch the programming you don't want. Sometimes a mistake is we treat our behaviors as identities.
Mm.
This is how I've always been, so this is just who I am. Um, I often talk about, as horrific as, traumatic events are, there's the silver lining, the blessing in it is that you think I can pinpoint that's where my pattern came from afterwards. There's actually, it can actually be helpful for some people because the other kind of trauma is sneaky. You inherit it. You collected it when you were a little kid, and you don't, it was just micro trauma that you built up along the way and has become bloomed into this big thing. And you're like, it doesn't seem like a big deal. It's like just who I am. I just always had this. I don't know why I do this, and so you can mistake it as identity. And when you do it, you feel like this is just who I am. I got to manage it for the rest of my life. And so the good news is you don't. And, it could be even just simple things. There's plenty of people listening, I'm sure, who are like annoyed by the sound of other people chewing. I've come across a lot of these people. And the technique I think it was a different technique that I used than I'd used with you, Jess. Um, I help people remove that. It takes 10, 15 minutes and just reprograms the brain and just removes the sound of chewing. And what's great whenever I do this with people, I just grab something that's loud and crunchy. Maybe it's a loud pepper or there's a bag of chips or anything like that. And I just go, all right. And I start snacking into a microphone, which into a mic, and I was in radio for 25 years, is the most annoying sound in the world because it's just like right there. It's penetrating in your brain because you got earbuds in and stuff. And so I would bite that and be like, oh, that's a loud, disturbing noise. And they'd like just go, oh. Whereas before they'd be like, you are the rudest person in the world. Like I don't want to be around you. I need to get away from you. And just like, oh, just judgment, the laser beam staring at you. And it's cool that you can just remove that. You can just
Mhm.
remove that and again, it's gone. It's just programming within you. Another example is there was a guy who loved bread. He loved bread so much, but he had celiac disease, I think is what it's called, right?
Yeah.
And so gluten's a problem. Bread is a no-no. And so all we did was just do a technique to help remove that. And then, yeah, it's been 3, 4 years now. And like right away, the change happened. Like the next day, he's like, later that day, he's like messaged and going, wow, I'm surrounded by bread in my kitchen and I didn't even notice it. Like right, like you said, D, right? It's like that watchdog's not picking up on it. Like, oh,
Yeah.
this is what I like, or oh, this is bad, or this is like, and so it just shuts that down. It closes it off. And for me, it was the addiction to Coca-Cola. I just developed an addiction where it's like, oh, I used to love the sting going down my throat that first sip. And then when I did that technique, just removed it. And I remember my coach going, "So how do you feel about Coca-Cola?" I'm like, "I could drink one right now, you know? Oh, I guess maybe the problem isn't gone." That's what I thought. I'm like, I could drink one right now. And then 2 weeks later, I'm like, I haven't drank a Coke at all. I haven't craved it. I haven't, I've gone into stores and I don't even see it anymore. Whereas before, I'd be like, see all the Coca-Cola signs and I'd see it in the cooler. And it's like, oh yeah, I have no compulsion for that anymore at all. And so it's just the power of just reprogramming that little quick
So
brain
you
trick.
used a word that I'd like to dive into a little bit deeper, Troy, and that's addiction. You used it with Coca-Cola, and
Hmm.
some people are actually addicted to drinks like Coca-Cola or Mountain Dew or something like that. But what
Food,
about other
absolutely.
addictions like smoking or something of that nature? Does this also work on those things? And just dive into that a little, please.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. It's a great question. And I don't deal with like drugs and alcohol so much myself, but I have people who do exactly what I do, and that is what they focus on. One of my best friends, he helps people who struggle with alcohol and some with drugs too, and so you just change the programming. There's programming within you that's saying this, mechanism. I'll say this is just bubbly. That's a sparkling water, so it's not Coca-Cola anymore. That's good. I've been free of it for like 4 years. So your part of your brain saying, "Oh, this is like a strategy. This behavior is a strategy to help you cope with something," right? And so drugs, alcohol, food, numbing yourself,
Mhm.
drinking, anything, and all these addictions. People have coffee addictions, or all people have exercise addictions, right? Even healthy habits can become something that's just an addiction and numbing you from something and distracting you,
Yeah.
and it's just programming. And a lot of people who don't like to hear that because, like, no, my problem is the worst, and it's going to take forever. And this is what Dee, you and
That's,
I know. This is what we call secondary gain in the
mhm.
coaching realm, and it's just gain. It's like you're getting something out of it. The behavior, every behavior has a positive intention, and it's to serve your values ultimately, right? Keeping you safe, and love, belonging, like all these values. And so it just becomes a strategy. And the more you do the strategy, the more it becomes just a reflex strategy. And it's just cycling and cycling and cycling. And it's just happening automatically. Send out the craving. This means that, oh, someone just there. My stress level's going up. That means I reach for the bottle. That means that, I go and I need to use any kind of drug, whether it's pills, whether it's anything, right? And so you just develop this habit. And the good news is, it's just there's a program in you and you can remove it. And it's a huge major step to being able to shift a new behavior. A lot of times when you remove the programming, the behavior goes away right away because it's that program is just running the show.
Mhm.
And then there's other times you remove the programming and the behavior might linger. I call it the phantom behavior. The behavior has been running for so long and it's running so well that it doesn't even need the programming anymore. Kind of like, you teach your kids to do something and then one day you come home and they're like, oh, they're finally doing it without me having to say anything. This is great, right? And they're doing it all the time and they got this habit. It's like now they're just running it on themselves. That's when you remove the programming. If the habit happens to linger, then it's just like, oh yeah, there's now we just got to go and just change one more thing to get it gone. And using like a 15-minute technique or 10-minute technique, sometimes even faster, and it's really really cool. So yeah, not my area of expertise. I'm happy to pass you along to my friend or other master practitioners of mental emotional release and to
Mhm.
help you to explore that as possibilities of being able to get past that. And yeah, you can remove those addictions. There's a part of your brain that's just telling you, we need this. We need this. This is our coping mechanism to help you keep you safe. It all comes down to a lot of these behaviors we don't want is about protection, right? It's
Mhm.
just unconscious protection. And we value that system, right? Someone go, oh, I'm broken or anything like that. It's like, no, no, it's just like misaligned, just off course a little bit. Let's just adjust this so you can head in the direction that you want. And so and what I find most is when it comes to someone who's struggling with, say, alcohol or drugs, that's where the change might take longer only because they need to be ready for it.
Yeah.
Right? Even if they're like, this is ruining my life, I need to get past this. and they want that change, just like that football player, that ex-football player. It's like, okay, yeah, you want it, but are you ready for it? And so once
Hmm.
they're ready, though, the change can happen a lot faster than we realize.
So if a person is listening to this right now and they think, oh, I want that change, I'm ready to give up drinking, how will they know that they're actually ready before they call you? Or is that something they would have to do a free consultation call with you to find out?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, just reach out and then for like drinking and alcohol, I would refer you to my friend just because it's his specialty. It's like I can do it and I have done it with people, but it's like it's his specialty. It's his world every day. He's more of an expert at that than I am. I focus more so on, on trauma, depression, anxiety, and the behaviors of like people pleasing, perfectionism, and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Um, and so, yeah, you would meet, say, with me or with him, or if you prefer to work with women coaches, I got those too. And you'd meet with them and they'd have the right questions to ask and find out just how ready you are. Yeah.
But don't let it
And
hold you back.
Awesome.
Don't let it hold you back.
now take the first step because even finding
Take
out
the
that you're
first
not
step.
100% ready is positive. It's like you're moving towards something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it could
Yep.
be frustrating. You're like, I just want this gun. He's like, I'm sorry, you're just not ready. You're almost there.
Hmm.
And then you can even take the steps to become ready. So, yeah, great question right there. But it's just
Yeah.
really powerful and know that change can happen and big change, multiple changes. Um, First, I think if it's okay, I'd like to share a story about one gal. This is would be, the most common kind of trauma that we define as trauma,
Troy, can I
which
ask a question real quick?
yes, Jess,
Thank you. So if a person, you speak with them and you determine that they're just not quite there yet, do you have suggestions or, things that could help, things you can tell them to do to help them along to get to that place where they are ready?
yes,
Or is okay, okay.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
All
There's
right.
there's little things they can do to help loosen it. One of them might be what we spoke about earlier about changing the language
Yeah.
around I have this, I am this,
Hmm.
right? And those are the one is
That
a
seems like a
blatant
big
I am
one.
is a blatant identity statement. And the I have is a sneaky identity statement because you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I have this as a part of who I am and I want to keep it, Schmiegel, precious.
My precious.
And your conscious mind might be going, I hate this. I don't want to keep it. But your unconscious mind is using it has a positive intention, right? Just trying to
Mm-hmm.
protect you. It feels like this is the only option. And so it can't let it go. You're not allowed.
Yeah.
Right.
But by separating as your identity, then you shift it away. And then that can create the nice space that you need where you're like, oh, I can
Mhm.
behave in a different way. I'm ready to, I might be able to find out what that is and let it go. I can be safe in a different way.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, you got it.
Great
You got it.
question, Jess.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. So yeah, the common type of trauma that we refer to as trauma is event trauma, known as acute. I don't know why acute means
Mhm.
small, then but it's big. It's a big event. This significant emotional event that happens, and then it's like it rattles you to the core, and ever since you've had these new behaviors, right? Maybe you're hyper vigilant and you're having panic attacks or anxiety attacks or all these things that can happen. You behave in different ways. And those can those can be removed quite quickly. And a great example of it is a woman named Julie, who we're coming on maybe like 6, 7 years ago. Well, I met with her last year, um, and she had experienced where she was taken hostage
Oh
by an
my,
ex and held at gunpoint.
oh my gosh.
And she was that way for hours, and she was convinced she was going to die. And so, no surprise, from that day forth, she was hypervigilance working. That watchdog, the amygdala, was
Mhm.
working overtime, right? Scouring
Yeah.
the environment, listening for any little noises and amplifying those noises. So any big noise, would just throw her into shock and anxiety and panic. And she had all these other behaviors, that came from it as well. And so she struggled that for 6 years.
Wow.
And when she came to me, she spoke about just anxiety. She didn't tell me about the story. And she's like, I got anxiety. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're hypervigilant. You're like, yeah. And I said, okay, well, when's the first time you remember being hypervigilant? and she had a memory of being like a kid. She's like, oh, kind of maybe like her unconscious mind just served up a little memory. She's like, oh, geez, I guess maybe in this situation, a little girl with friends or at school. I can't recall the exact story, but um, she identified it that. And so we got into the true trigger and we released it. And then a few days later, she texted me. She's like, can MER get rid of PTSD? And I just kind of smiled and went, yeah, why do you ask? And she said, well, here's my story.
Wow.
And she told me the story. And she's like, Troy, all the triggers are gone. They're all gone.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I was like, cool. And she's like, why don't you seem surprised? And I'm like, so I see
This
this
is
every
what
week.
you do.
This is really, first I experienced it myself. I went, what? I had a
Yeah.
lot of childhood trauma from childhood abuse, and I
Mm.
even had a lot of it repressed. And I did this MER process, didn't speak a lick of it with my coach. And once we released the seed that, was bloomed and blossomed into all these patterns that I was running, it stripped away all that trauma at the exact same time. And so there's a way to heal from all this trauma without even having to talk about it. And so just know that
Awesome.
that's possible. And again, if you're like, that's not possible, just shift that sentence to, how is that even possible? And ask
Yeah.
it with disdain and, and be
Yeah.
mad at it. I don't care.
Shake your
But
head and
just
make
shift it
faces
that.
at it.
Yeah. Yeah. But go, I need to learn more about this loser who's telling me it can be gone fast. I don't need to relive it. And so just
Yeah.
know, um, often we use talk therapy, to heal trauma. And what that does, it's like going in through the conscious mind to get to access to your unconscious. And it's trying to bring everything up through a logical standpoint because that's your logical brain, right? And trauma in the world of emotions and
Hmm.
those imprints. It's not based on thoughts and logic, right? Because logic, just like you, like logically, I should not be running out of the shower naked from a centipede.
Exactly.
Your logical mind's like, no, I don't need to do that. But your unconscious mind's like, hell yeah, we got to do that.
I did not care. I'm just glad they didn't have any friends over.
That's an example of just the power of
Then
that
they would have been
programming. Yeah.
traumatized.
Yes. And yeah. Troy, there's more people. Here you go. Bring them
Yeah.
on in. We need to scrub this from the mind. And it's not about even, and when I say scrub from the mind, I don't mean getting rid of the memory. The memory will exist. It's just removing the connection of the strong
Right.
emotional imprints and then the meanings. That's your baggage and the programming, and you remove that,
Yeah.
and the memory still remains. And so, look at the power
Yeah.
of our programming, and when you change that program, how it can shift your life. You can actually just remove the triggers and all that programming instead of having to manage it.
Yeah.
And it's just,
It's,
yeah, it's such a cool
I mean,
story.
it just seems like magic to me, Troy. It just seems so magical. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast again, because I just feel like more people need to know and understand what this is so that they can do the thing and release all that crap so that they can move forward in their lives in the most powerful way possible.
Yeah,
Because I know how it feels to want to do things and to be stuck inside those things and not be able to move forward. I've done a lot of that work on my own, and it's fucking hard.
Yeah.
So if you have a way to be able to access that so quickly and easily and not spend years on the hamster wheel of managing it, then my question is, why the hell would you not do that? You
Right.
know, I mean, our personal being is an investment. We don't even think twice about investing in a coffee at Starbucks every fucking day. And if you add that up, just that one thing, you could pay for your MER session and be like so much freer, so much lighter, so much more of everything, just more. It'd
yeah,
be, I mean, like, that's why I wanted to do this, because people need to know what this is and what it can do and how it can affect their life. I mean, like, when I think about the power of the healing that it provides, it's just, I mean, it's amazing. Like if you think about it too much, it's going to bring me to tears. You know what I mean? Like seriously, because it's so powerful. And I just feel so grateful for the outcomes that you've told us about and the ones you haven't told us about and the ones that are yet to come,
Yeah.
because it's just, it's amazing. It truly, truly is amazing.
Yeah. I'd love to share one more story with you if that's okay.
Yeah.
Dee, I'm sorry. Can I interrupt real quick? I am so sorry.
Absolutely.
I do have to jump off now. I have my work to do here
Awesome.
shortly. But it has been absolutely amazing. It's been great to see you again, Troy, and thanks again.
Absolutely. You got it. You got it.
Thanks
But
for coming on and
Congratulations.
sharing your stories with us,
absolutely,
Yeah.
yes, it
giving
was
us
my
the naked
pleasure.
truth of a the naked truth of a phobia.
That was worth the price of admission. You didn't tell me that story when we got together 2 years ago.
Yeah. Well, you guys have a great day, and I'll see y'all soon.
You got
Thanks,
it,
you
Jess.
too. Update me
Thank
later. I
you.
love you.
Love you. Bye bye.
Bye.
It is a really cool element of this is, I was in therapy for 2.5 years before I discovered mental emotional release. I had struggled with anxiety attacks, also depression, but I never talked about it. That was like so taboo for me. I remember as I look back now, it was a fear had built up way I'd seen, depression kind of portrayed. It's like, oh, if you, have bad thoughts and, you're so hopeless and depressed, it's like that's when they throw a straitjacket on you. And
Mhm.
I didn't want to lose that autonomy. I'm like, so I just hid it and buried it and even pretended myself that, at times that I wasn't depressed.
Mhm.
The anxiety I was willing to admit because I just started having anxiety attacks in public in my 40s. I don't know. So, well, I can't
Wow.
hide that. so,
Right.
so I went to therapy, and the first thing that my therapist said, which I'm so grateful for, is she's like, "You're not broken." Because I was like, I feel like I'm broken. She's like, "You're not broken. You can get, you can manage this." And I was like, "Oh, thank God." But as we progressed, it was clear that um, she she didn't know if anxiety would go away or not. And so she basically said, this could be your life. Like, this is a life sentence. You're going to have to learn how to manage it. And she gave me some good tools to help manage it. Um, it started to increase anyway. So, at some point I went on medication. Um, and then I'm using other tools. That's when I started diving into a lot of mindset work. I read 23 self-help books in a year, D, just trying to find
Wow.
the answer, just power throughing and picking up tools and trying them and going, this is just management tool, management. And then finally, it was a friend who had depression, and she met with me for lunch, and I could just sense something was different. And I just went, "What did you do?" Just a question out of nowhere, just accusing. "What did you do?" And she
Yeah.
just smiled. She's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Your depression. It's gone." She said, "Yeah, yeah, I got rid of it 2 weeks ago." So I did this process called MER, and I have a life coach. And I went, "What the fuck is a life coach? I never heard of this." and and then yeah, she connected with me with her coach, and I learned about it. And then again, being hopeful because it's what I wanted. I wanted to be free of it for good. I didn't feel like anxiety was me because looking back, I realized I had anxiety a lot throughout life, but I didn't see it or notice it until I had anxiety attacks. Um, and so I felt like I could get past it. And this process helped me get past my anxiety and depression. And it's a really fast and gentle and permanent manner. It's been 4 years since I've done it, and not a
It's
single symptom
amazing.
has ever come back. All the triggers are gone. And it's just really cool how much you can heal and how fast you can heal it. And sometimes if you sit there and pick it like one by one by one, that's good. I recommend it. And just know that you can also bang out a bunch of them at the same time. And I try to picture it, explain it as like a tree. So let's say you have like perfectionism and people pleasing and anxiety attacks and depression and I had childhood trauma, I had anger issues. You have these collection of things, and they all seem like they're different problems. And I treat them now as different branches on a tree. They're all kind of connected. And when you go right down into the seed of it, you get to the seed, and that's what that true trigger is. You release that, and it allows you to actually release the whole tree. And a great example of that is Melanie. She's in Louisiana, just a great mother and wife, and she came to me with a lot of the similar things I'd experienced: massive perfectionism and people pleasing, um, chronic anxiety. She had it at a level that I did not experience. It was just chronic. Every day you wake up and you're just anxious, and you're anxious about,
Wow.
you have anxiety about anxiety, and it just really controls your life, and you're just hyper vigilant, right? And so it's one of those things. It's like, will this work for me, Troy? I'm like, hey, let's find out. It's just programming. And then when we did it, spoiler alert, it did. And then she would have depression. She had what, PMDD, which is like PMS on steroids,
Yeah.
and can create a lot of depression and things. And so she came to me with that. And so we were filling out that tree of all these ailments, right? And patterns that she did not want anymore. And then when we got to the seed, you know, we released it. And so that was back, I think, in September. And I just checked in with her last month, and not a single thing has returned. Her perfectionism, gone. People pleasing, gone. She used to struggle to say no, and that's gone. She would avoid conflict. Now she's like, oh, yeah, I have, I confront people about things, and people confront me about things, and I don't run away, and I don't appease and please and just try to go along to get along. She's like, I communicate my needs better. She used to have a lot of
Awesome.
resentment and get triggered by her husband and get really defensive. And now she's like, I have a conversation with him now, and I can just see sometimes if it's his baggage and his programming, and I go, wow, look at that. That's curious. And so she has a lot more presence and grounding and
Amazing.
empathy, and yeah. And so all of that was gone.
Golly,
Hypervigilance is gone.
she has to feel like just like this huge, like massive ton of weight just fell away from her. Because I just get that feeling as you're telling the story, just like how heavy that was for her, and then to have that all released, I can just feel like a cork that finally got to come to the surface of the water. You know what I mean? And now she's
Yeah.
just bobbing around enjoying the sunshine. That's just so beautiful.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And what another element of it that's fascinating is often the changes happen and you don't even notice. And the reason why that is because you change it at the unconscious level, and you have new programming. And so you're just behaving in a way, and it's just natural. Right? We have so much baggage and programming that it disconnects us from we truly are, our authentic self. And so that's one of the most common comments I get after we do a big MER breakthrough session, which takes a few hours to do what we did with Melanie, right? Like we released a lot and just get to that seed, and then you release it and all the emotional
Yeah.
baggage with it. Um, so that's not a 15-minute process. It's going to take a few hours to get all of that gone, but it's
But
better than,
still, a few hours
it's better
compared
than
to
months and
years.
years of trying to manage it and get
Yeah.
rid of it, right? And yeah, so usually I do it over a couple of days, and we get rid of it. Um, but what happens is you clear out that baggage and you connect to your authentic self. One woman said it so beautifully. She's like, wow, I thought I was going to feel like the new me. I don't. I feel like the true me. And I was like,
That's
oh,
so
God,
amazing.
that is totally what it was. I wish I came up
Yeah.
with that because that's the experience. You just feel more
Yeah.
connected to yourself. Another woman was just like, I feel like I'm meeting myself for the first time,
Mm.
and it's really comfortable. Like she's like, it feels familiar. So that was so cool, right? And it's just these things will just, like I said, the patterns will just often just disappear. And with Melanie, like I checked in with her, 3 months later, and I'm like, hey, anything come back? Any symptoms? And she was like, geez, I haven't even thought about it. Huh. Wow, you're right. I haven't done this. I haven't done that. She's just going through her day, right? She's just doing these
Yeah.
things automatically and unconsciously, not even aware anymore, unless there's something that's really, really obvious that pops up and going, wait, that used to make me jump or panic or angry or whatever. And then, if there's a clear example, then they consciously tune into it. Oh, wow, I've changed. But
Yeah.
unless you have that happen, it's people most often just don't even notice. They just go about their day, like people
That's
pleasing.
amazing.
I had one client who's just like, I just can't say no, or when I started saying no, he would say yes first, in the moment because he couldn't say no in the moment, and then he'd say no later. And his word just his yes became devalued, right? No, he
Right.
lost his integrity. It's like people couldn't trust his yes anymore, and it really hurt his integrity and his reputation. And he's like, okay, this is not the strategy. I got to come up with something different. And so
Right.
when we released his seed, then it removed it. Like I checked in with him a week later. Hey man, what have you noticed? Nothing really. Oh wait, and all of a sudden all these things came back. I said no on that day, and I said no to this, and I said no to that, and I said no to that over here, and this one over there. And we spent 15 minutes. He was telling me all the times he said no. But when I first asked him, he's like, nothing's changed.
Right.
Consciously, he wasn't recognizing it. But when he tuned in, went, oh my goodness, I'm totally behaving different. I'm saying no with so much ease. There's
Yeah.
no energy behind it. It's not sparking any trigger inside, right? And sure, you have to try and overcome. And that's where I often talk about two approaches to healing. Both are valid. I want to say that right off the hop. Whichever you choose, do it. Moving towards healing is beautiful. But the common, most popular approach is the outside in approach. And that's where you want to change external things, environments, put in boundaries, change your own behaviors and habits, right? So you start doing things different. And the goal ultimately is you'll change your programming, right?
Right.
If I do this and I do it long enough, then I'll be something different. If I'm being something different, I'll believe something different, right? If you have a belief that you're not, that you don't matter or you're not good enough or anything like that, then you start doing something to prove it not true, right? And you're like, I'm going to do this. And the ultimate goal is to get in and change that programming because then you start, seeing yourself and you adopt a different identity.
Yeah.
Well, now you can actually do it the other way. You can go inside out. That's where you go in, change the programming first, and then you start being and behaving differently. Sometimes it's automatic, and sometimes there's just it's loose ends. Like I said, the phantom behaviors. An
Yeah.
example of that is one guy who got rid of road rage. He had programming that was creating road rage. And then, a week later, someone cut him off in traffic and he honked his horn, he flipped a bird. And then he was like, oh no, I guess it didn't work. And the coach working with him just said, okay, tell me, how did you feel in the moment? Did you feel the rage? And he went, oh, no, I didn't. I just reflexively hunked the horn and flipped my finger. And as soon as I did, I retracted my finger and I started, ugh, I just felt so gross and I felt shame. And I was like, so that's a different experience, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. So it's just a phantom behavior. It's like there's just one little wire in there in your brain that's still letting you on, oh, we got to do this. When this happens, we got to do that. And just a quick little technique removed it. And he's never had that response ever again. And it's okay to be annoyed. He's still going to be annoyed if someone cuts him off in traffic and jeopardizes
Sure.
his own safety. And, he's got kids aboard the car. That's a normal reaction, but you're not overreacting, right?
Right.
And making it so extreme. And so it's just really,
Yeah.
really powerful. And so I encourage anyone, whatever behavior you have, if some people ask me about complex PTSD, does it work? Absolutely. That's what I had. A lot of accumulated trauma that we don't even recognize as trauma. I find that um, troubling in some sense because it just feels like this is who I've been, who I am.
Mhm.
We don't realize we accumulate baggage along the way in these programming.
Yeah.
But just recognize people pleasing can be a trauma response, programming, perfectionism, trauma response.
Absolutely.
And then the mistake we make is when we try to heal it, we often focus on that significant emotional event where we know, okay, that happened. This, created this pattern. An example of that would be coming home from school, 98% on the test D. I'm so happy. And I show my dad, and he's like, that's great, son. And do you know where you went wrong with the other 2%? He turned
Ah,
it into a teaching moment, like in a split second, right? Like, let's find out where you went wrong.
oh
And I
my
just remember
gosh.
like, ugh, and he had his arm around me like a hug. He's trying to give me love. And I'm just like wiggling out of it, like,
Yeah,
nope, I
like
don't
get
want to
off
be
me. You
here.
earned it.
And I
Yeah.
just remember like thinking 98's not enough. I need to be
Jeez.
perfect. And guess what? I tried to be perfect in school and in work and in relationships and all these things, right? And
Mhm.
so I could look back and go, that's the moment. That's the moment, D, where I became a perfectionist. And I've discovered that it's not. So I treat those moments, I call them sunshine moments, the sun. A sun will help like a flower open up its petals and bloom, right?
Right.
But the sun did not create the flower. How did the flower start? As a
From a seed.
seed,
Yeah.
right? And so we often go to the sun event. We're like, this happened, and I need to, this is what I need to heal and get past, and I got to talk about it or, get through it. And the truth is, it's like, no, that's the sun moment where it maybe bloomed. And even for Julie, who, when she had that horrific experience of, being held hostage, that would be like a sun moment for her, right? It's like, and then it just bloomed into all these patterns. And then it wasn't the actual seed because she had hypervigilance and other things before. And so we went and found the seed. That's why we didn't even talk about that sun
Yeah,
event. And we got
that's so
down into this.
amazing.
And that seed is either something you inherit, generational, like we talked about. Maybe it's past life. Could happen in the womb. You know, you're absorbing all the energy that mom is bringing in, and when you're
Yep.
being created in the womb. So, like, I was adopted, and then, like, so I was given up at birth, and I was put in an orphanage. And so I just imagine like the stress my mom would have been under, my bio mom, right? And all that energy I would have could have been imprinted and collected in me.
Yeah.
And so I was born with a lot of baggage. Um, and so a lot of us are going to be collecting that from our mom, from our dad, from generations. And then also the act of birth can be traumatizing in its own way, right? You're
Yeah.
being ripped out
Very
of a
true.
womb and all the sensories around you. And that's why babies are like crying, going, what? What's going
Yeah.
on? It's overload. And so,
Yeah.
trauma can be born right there. And then even from the imprinting phase of 0 to 3, where most of our programming gets created out of the womb. Um, and that's why conscious memories tend to not be the seed. And when we treat it as such, that could be a real problem and prevent us from really cleaning things up. This is where you heal the traumatic event and things feel good, but then a year later or months, years later, it comes back and you're like, why? Why did it come back? Because you didn't get the seed. So
Right.
go get the seed and go change it, and just know that change is possible first and foremost.
Yeah, absolutely. And quickly and sustainably, you know,
Yes.
that's really cool. So,
Yeah.
Troy, thank you for sharing all of these beautiful stories with us today. I mean, like if they don't give people hope that things can change in their life, I don't know what will, truly. So, if people would love to work with you, where can they find you?
You can check out my website. It's authentic u, the letter U, dot ca. Authentic letter U. Authentic U dot ca.
Okay.
CA is for Canada, by the way, for those who are like, dot .ca, what kind of weird thing is that?
Not
Uh,
California, it's
yeah,
Canada.
that's for us here in Canada. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Dee, so much
Awesome.
for doing this. I loved, I thank you for the reunion with Jess. I haven't seen her in a couple of years, and
Oh,
it
you're
was fun
welcome. That
just,
was fun.
yeah, hearing her testimonial, and that was really, really cool. I appreciate this.
Yes, you're very welcome. And thank you, Troy, so much. I appreciate your time and energy and what you do. It is so beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, it changed my life. And it saved my life, is what it really did. And that's what inspired me to go. And I'm like, how do not more people not know about this? It's like, I want to
Yeah,
get out there and help them experience it. And so, yeah,
yeah,
it's just such a joy to help people do that. It's cool.
yeah, absolutely. So maybe this episode will do its part and help more people know and understand about MER and lead them to you or one of your friends. If that's the case, then you'll connect them for that. So thank you again,
Absolutely.
Troy.
Bring your skepticism. Ask all the questions you want. I love it. I was skeptical too. Even when people go to do it, you're like, but will it work? There's always going to be the party that's like, yeah. And then once you
Yeah.
experience, you went, oh, okay. Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
yeah. That's so cool. You're like, why didn't I do it sooner?
Yeah. Yeah,
But
that's
you
the
do it
only,
when it's time. You do it when it's time. That's everything arrives exactly perfectly on time.
yeah, like I could sit there and go, oh, geez, I wish I would have found this, when instead of going to therapy, I wish I would have found this. It's like, yeah, but there's perks to, even going to therapy and getting in my shit that way of, being a part of the journey. For some reason, it came up, 2.5 years later. And I do
Yeah,
wish it would have shown up sooner, but maybe I wasn't ready for it. Maybe I was just, and when
exactly.
you're trapped in victimhood and you feel disempowered and you trapped in identity, you might
Mm,
not be ready to take ownership. Like that's the part of the process. One
yeah,
caveat is like, are you ready? Are you ready to take ownership for what you have? And we call this being at cause, not at fault. It's being at cause, knowing you played a role in it. And so, for example, the day that I came home with a 98% test and made it mean I need to be perfect, I made that decision. right? I played a role in it. So even if someone says you are garbage, I liken it to a pen. Like, so let's say this pen says you are garbage, and I give it to you. You have to actually take it and hold on to it. That's your role.
Yeah.
Doesn't excuse what they did, right? But just
Right. That's
recognizing,
right.
oh, damn it, I actually adopted. I held on to. I've been holding. That's my role. That means I can let go of it.
Let it
And
go
so that's the
anytime.
power of it, right? And so sometimes we're not ready there. If you're in a state of really strong victimhood, you're
Yeah.
not ready to go, no, I didn't play a role in this. It's all their fault. And I
Yeah.
can appreciate that, been there.
Yeah.
And we just don't want to stay in that state. You want to go, oh, I played a role in this. And then once you accept that, then you can play a role in healing yourself. No one else can heal you but you. I don't call
Absolutely.
myself a healer. I'm a facilitator of healing. I'll help
Yes.
guide you. That's it. That's all I can do.
Exactly.
It's up to you. So, yeah. Thank you
That's
for
right.
everything. I appreciate you so much, Dee.
Yep. You're very welcome. And thank you, everyone, for joining us on another episode of Spiritually Speaking. Please like, share, and subscribe so we can get this message and this amazing modality out to more and more people across the world. I appreciate each and every one of you. And until next time, I love you all.